I don't think that I would be doing too much to mention a few times over, if it really takes that, if it's necessary, that in wake of the tension in America that's going on right now behind race, politics, nationalism, that's being expanded by the Cancer Jupiter transit, we are supposed to be learning from it, not being set on fire, turning against each other into acts of civil war. We got to rise higher. And we don't want to miss the opportunities. Let me use myself as an example, and maybe you could apply it to yourself also. So using myself as an example, when I hear commentaries such as Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes, people of this nature, I see opportunity, I see a blessing, I see leadership, I see courage. I also see resilience, because it's not easy to be a truth teller, regardless of whether or not you have perfected all of the accuracies, because none of us are perfect in our accuracies. But the fact that they have the guts to get up there and be a truth teller for their people as they see it, and if it's not for their people, it's for the sake of truth in and of itself. They have the guts to be rejected, to be disliked, to be hated, and everything else. And were it not for such people, we could not expand our minds. We could not learn further. We could not come out of the dogmatic limitations that we have placed ourselves in within the security of our own dogmatism, prejudices, fears, and so on. As you explore comment section and a lot of this commentary, it's a lot you can learn from it. And some of the things that I pick up is there are still the mindsets that are limited to dualities. And there's this idea that if you tell the truth about me, if you say something that might be true about so-called my people or my community, I don't like you, I hate you, you're spewing hate. No, I'm here to put it on record that as example, and again, you apply it to your community or demographic, okay, the way that you see it, but speaking from my personal reality, if you are a so-called black person and you are so wound up and offended at what Charlie Kirk has to say to the point where you're celebrating his death, you are clapping for his death, you are glad that he's not here, that's what you get, cracker, and all these other things, cracker ass, cracker, and so on and so forth, okay? You have missed the opportunity. You are flying very low. You are part of the problem. And it's people like that that resist opportunity for change, for growth, self-awareness, and so on. And let's allow the examination to take place. Without examination, we cannot withstand the scrutiny of the Virgo impulse South Node that allows us to refine ourselves. And if we cannot withstand that, we will not improve. We will continue to be the cancer or a cancer of society. We will continue to be burdens and problems. Our image will only continue to plummet. It is the South Node Virgo energy that helps us to be at our absolute best. Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes represents that South Virgo energy. The South Virgo energy, it scrutinizes, it criticizes. And mind you, we had Mars transiting through Virgo when much of this activity was at its zenith and first being introduced as a new experience for our modern world. But here's the thing. How do we get to the refinement of the resource or mineral that we are if we cannot pass through the rugged process and steps, procedures that removes the impurities and purifies the product Overall, nobody is allowed to call us out or to name our contradictions or to question the inconsistencies or our crimes against communities and humanity. The truth is that we need to be called out if we should decide to fall into such character of ill repute. We need to be called out. It is a civic duty that our neighbor calls us out if we violate the moral agreement, the matriarchal law, the principle of conscience, moral rectitude. If we should violate these things, we should be called out and we should be exposed, and it should be so publicly. If you don't want to be called out as a people, you should open your mouth and you should get proactive to scrutinize and criticize your neighbor, your brother, and your sister if you do not want them to misrepresent you. That is your fault. It is my fault. It is our fault that there is something to scrutinize about us. Why can't we as adults understand that? And there goes majority of our problem right there. We are above examination. That's part of the problem. And this is why we cannot get to improvement. Why do we have so much violence in our communities? Why do we have glorification of gangsterism and thugging? Why do we have so much prostitution disguised as women's rights and freedom? Why are these things going on? Why do the stats read a horror, a regret in our character and culture? Why does the whole world look at the African American community and have a lot of negative things to say? Who gave them room to do that? Look at yourself in the mirror and own it. Take accountability. You did it. And if you didn't do it, somebody who looks like you did it, and you didn't open your mouth and say, hey, don't do that. We are the same image and you can't misrepresent us. So that's your fault. And it's my fault. And you will not grow, you will not be blessed until you can take ownership of that. You're a piece of shit if you can't do that. Just keep it a buck. We have been sowing this sickness of ourselves and our image for far too long. And it is true that we didn't get here by ourselves. We are the guinea pig of this nation. Experiments, social engineering, tactics. It was planned for us to be where we are and in the state and condition that we are in, but let's be honest, we are not dumb. We are a brilliant people. And with all of our brilliance, we choose to misuse that brilliance. And we champion our thugs and our gangsters and our criminals. And we completely ignore and leave isolated our scholars, our teachers, the best of our men. Here's the honest truth. If I would have had to rely on African American women and men in our communities, from where I know we all are from, to support me and who I know I had to become, I would have never made it. Because you don't get support for being scholarly unless you're a black woman being scholarly through a college institution, but not for spiritual means. You don't get support for that if you're a male, a black male. There's only one image for you as a black male that you will get support for, and that's a criminal. And if it's not a criminal, it's an athlete. Otherwise, you are faceless, nameless, you don't exist, you are invisible. There is no help and support for you. There is no praise. If I got up here supporting such culture, If I started showing my body and face and all these other things in a video camera, everybody be asking, oh, what's your cash app? I just want to support you. But you know what? The truth is, it is lust why they are there. That's the problem with our community. If you are going to be a stand-up person in the black community, nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to support you. They won't be there until you start making a whole bunch of money and getting a whole lot of attention. They don't even see you. You have to suffer going by yourself when you are a black heterosexual man and you decide to go the other way than being a thug or a street nigga. And we wonder why our young men, who all do not have the strength that I had, they decide not to go that route and they fall for it. They see the pattern that black girls only respond to the thugs, the criminals, the drug dealers, the athletes, and it becomes all that they want to aspire to be. Black women have a huge responsibility in the read that we're getting from the public, and even in their indulgence in feminism. There is a read that they're getting from the public, but accountability is something like a kryptonite to the female body. A nation rises no higher than its woman. And no matter how much nobody likes me saying it, how sensitive people and triggered people get about me bringing up feminism, I stand by it and I hold by it because I know all too well that it is source of many symptoms that this entire nation suffers, and it has misled women, and by that it has socially engineered in the wrong direction our male species of our society, the glorification of it. And it was Jewish people who originated that image, starting with NWA. They bought into the private prison industrial complex. They bought into hip hop, tied it together along with the public school system. And there you have it, gangsterism funded and financed. And we keep falling for it. They give you people like the Sexy Reds and all these other trashy rappers, and our children listen to them thinking it's cute. Our sons listen to bloodthirsty, violent music and celebrate it and praise it, and it's the only way they can get some attention is to be such characters. But when they decide to go the right direction, they are abandoned and isolated. They are on their own. Our communities only celebrate females. They do not celebrate males. They only support females. They do not support males. They lift up the females. They do not lift up the males. So what the fuck do you expect? We created the reputation that we have. We did. And to get angry at somebody else for calling it out, the problem is you. Now, I'm going to talk about a few key transits. And along with the transits, if I could do the responsible part as a voice to say, we cannot allow the social engineering tactics to work on us. We cannot allow that. The truth is that every people, every demographic, every race, all of us, we have our portion of trash that we throw on the floor. We have our portion of good service that we contribute to the whole perspective. And even though some of ours from time to time may switch places in where the microscope is being zoomed in, where attention is being directed, we have to remember that just because the media tends to zoom in on certain details, it does not indicate the full reality of what's going on outside of that in our world. What experiences do you have in your life? Allow that to be a basis of discovery for you, not what they decide to cook up on the media. Black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asians, Indian, European, African, yada, yada, yada. We all can go in circles about the issues that all of us have. And the truth is, it's a lot we can learn about it. It's a lot we can benefit from having these discussions constructively. But when we put emotion and rage behind it, the heart gets restricted, our minds get smaller, and our voices get louder, and our ego inflates, and there's no benefit, there's only damage and a reversal of our progress and ascension. It benefits those monarchical powers over us as principalities and the oligarchs they have in place, posing and pretending as our elected officials. It benefits them for us to turn our rage and attention to each other rather than direct our strategies and focus at how we can undo the chains, the blindfolds and ties that they have on us as the people. Don't get distracted, because while they are succeeding at deliberately sowing and creating tension, hysteria, fear, hatred, animosity, division, bigotry, racism, so on and so forth, if you notice, those Epstein files is still sitting there with their names on it. You know what I mean? So, it's like a smoke screen, a cloud of smoke, a powder keg, as Malcolm X once called it. And in that confusion, we assist them in weakening ourselves. So I do have, a couple things to say about it, but that's the basis of what I have to say about it. Is these people can't keep playing us. They can't keep deciding and engineering and instilling a particular energy and spirit in us that works against us. Understand? Okay, once again, the same way that it always goes. I may mention the same thing twice, I had to record in compilation, as I had opportunity in creating time. So I'm going to go over some of these points that I mentioned in this discourse, but I would love to start out with bringing our mind to the fact that on the 19th, we have Venus and the moon in conjunction entering into Virgo. And this is quite significant. And it is significant because this conjunction, it lets us know what state of consciousness we are stepping into Virgo with concerning our astral body and its intentions. And of course, this brings together how we are aware of ourselves as it relates to relationships and resources, as well as a sense of comfort, pleasure, or enjoyment of our reality. When Venus was transiting Leo we were attracting into our life themes, experiences, opportunities, and possibilities that would have us to feel more desirable in our life according to this time around our authentic expression rather than what others may have preferred us to be desired for. And when it comes to Virgo, Venus has to adjust her disposition. And in adjusting her disposition, it goes from a diva status, per se, and it submits into a status that is more modest, reserved, and focused on how can I serve, how can I help, how can I be useful, how can I demonstrate the value that I am through service, So now the expression of Venus is service oriented. That service orientation, because of this conjunction with the moon, it is the same as mother and daughter walking into Virgo together. Mother being the moon, daughter being Venus. Okay? Mother and daughter walking together. The moon is, of course, linked to our conscience. And the conscience now pairs with what we have a motivation to sense, experience, and create of desires, or rather attract to ourselves of desires. This means that the fulfillment in this expression, the transit of Venus, accented or anointed by the moon, is going to be such that we are looking for services that gives quiet of mind, peace, and satisfaction to our conscience, to our moral root within ourselves. We are looking to feed, nurture, heal, bring alive. We are looking to enrich our sense of nobility, honor, dignity, self-respect, all of the traits of ourselves that lightens our conscience as we relate with others, knowing that our intentions are sincere. We want to know that our intentions are geared to be selfless and not self-centered, and that we are being receptive. We are listening and we are sensing what is in the environment that may call for our service or call for our expertise, where we could show up and demonstrate our interest and will to be a part of what makes sense, a part of what equals efficiency in any situation. This is where we are deciding to confirm our value, to confirm our worth, to confirm who we are according to what services we can pair with the conscience that we had. That is conscience as in conscience. Okay, so there is a moral ideal that we have, especially in the climate of our world and atmosphere. There's a moral ideal that we have. There's a sense of right, wrong, good, and bad. There's a sense of having a will towards compassion, sensitivity, empathy, and wanting to be a part of what advocates for self or someone else. But this so not in words, not in expressions as it did with Leo, but this time around, it is more so of what can I do that isn't being done? What can I do that hasn't been done? That makes the difference, that serves the matriarchal need and demand that is being expanded and inflated through the expansion of Jupiter and Cancer. this Cancer Jupiter expansion, it has all of us to be very sensitive to home in on truth and home in on where our moral compass is at in order to contribute to a healthier environment against the intensity or intensification of political, social confusion, oppositions, offenses, that are going around in light of the inflation of nationalism on a dualistic level. And that dualistic level, it breeds a lot of conflict for those who are not able to transcend or able to ascend from those lower frequencies of duality, seeing only oppositions and reasons to fight and combat. So this is really going to lend us all a deeper understanding of what we could do to be helpful, of what we could do to make the difference from what we are good at doing. Mind you, this is a new moon position that just passed. Okay, so we just had the new moon at this 0 to 1st degree. And once again, it's like a new moon with Venus rather than a new moon with the sun. Okay, if you catch what I'm saying, it's more of a new moon with Venus rather than a new moon with the sun, a conjunction. So this is a new beginning accented by the moon, which is the emotional body, the intuitive body. Okay, our conscience is being reset. Our conscience is being renewed and blessed by Venus. That is an enthusiasm, an interest, and a new capacity to magnetize and attract opportunities to demonstrate the services that are innate in us, and in turn we get a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in knowing that we have found our place in the world, in society, in our families, or wherever else, where what we suffered to learn and develop now has a meaningful service, a meaningful purpose to serve out. So Virgo, as I will mention, later on, this is finishing school, for Venus. When she comes here, she, has to learn how to balance the books on her head as she walks, the curtsy, I believe you call it the curtsy, and, proper manners, dignity, things of that nature, modesty, so on and so forth. So temperance can be the standard right now. A sober disposition can be the standard right now. So this is an energy of not getting carried away and being consistent with our conscience, letting our conscience guide us through in order not to violate or transgress those moral thresholds that should be with us. This is a victory concerning the South Node Virgo, which manifests number 9 Hermit card process, which works against the detriment of Venus. And the detriment of Venus is when we allow ourselves to be consumed with Luciferic impulses through our desires and senses as a means of coping, or a means of escape, or a means of materializing feedback that we have not created for ourselves through noble or righteous means, but instead we do so through flamboyant or outer expressions, that gains validation and attention for a while. In other words, this is where we seek the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, all of the enes. Okay, here is what we're looking for. So as it relates with Venus and the moon, this is combination of dopamine, Venus, and oxytocin, the moon. Okay, that is combination between sodium and copper, okay, sodium and copper, which deals with those feminine expressed hormonal reward systems that we're looking for. So in order to get that fix, instead, what we would turn to do, rather than what has been done in past timelines before that the number 9 was working against the detriment of Venus, we now will seek that dopamine or oxytocin fix through means of what service can I provide, where can I be useful, where can I be helpful in a situation. And that is what serves that in a healthy measure, hopefully. Also, what I will be going over is the fact that Mars will enter into Scorpio on the 22nd, and the Sun will enter into Libra on the 22nd. You want to look in your natal birth chart, and you want to be sure, you want to verify where all of these points are at, so that you can time and prepare intentionally for the shifts or the changes in those realities of your life, such as the Virgo cusp, the Libra cusp, and the Scorpio cusp. These three is where there's shifts that's going to be taking place. Recently, you had a slight shift concerning Vesta entering into Sagittarius, which primes us out of that Scorpio stellium that we've had for a long time. And now Mars comes right behind that shadow work. It comes right behind those transformational processes in which we had to go and reconnect with our shadows and incorporate them into the self as part of our most sincere and authentic expressions. And that was helping us to heal the sense of failure in light of perfection that we were perceiving over ourselves as a demand or expectation through the Virgo South Node energy. And what we were learning is that by leaving out or abandoning those shadow expressions, instead of acknowledging them, embracing them, and incorporating them, they simply become delinquents in the underworld, and they wreak havoc within our soul, rather than us acknowledging and embracing those shadows and giving them directives, assignments, and purpose to serve within the body. And now that that has been recovered, and we pair it with accountability that was recovered and moral commitment that was recovered, we as a Scorpio theme have now learned to trust ourselves. And so Mars transiting Scorpio after this work, we're going to find that the conscious is clear. We're going to find that there's less hesitation. We're going to find also that more intensity can be expressed from an assertive and strategic standpoint toward our goals, toward our aims and our ambitions, to where what used to seem impossible for us to mount will now seem quite effortless to us in muscle memory, of what we have been experiencing and going through. Mars can bring a sense of obsession. It also can bring a sense of urgency with getting connected, getting tied, and getting established to persons or institutions or opportunities that we're able to expand our power through. So this is a power up intention. Now, Scorpio is where the issue that you had with Libra, it leads up to Scorpio. It leads up to Scorpio. So by resolving what was going on with your Libra placement, it is Scorpio that manifests the outcome that now has to be managed and utilized in order to carry out and fulfill what was on the other side of the imbalance or disharmony concerning the Libra issue that we were dealing with as Mars transited Libra. As Mars transits the last decan or the last minutes of Libra, the issue intensified of what we had to address or resolve. Scorpio is where that actually manifests. It comes through. It actually happens. But the moment that it happens, now it gets deep because of the responsibility, the commitment that has to follow behind that manifestation. Okay, so now that you got what it is that you feel or think or know is the solution based on, the crisis of Libra Mars transit, it requires 8th house commitment, staying power, focus, dedication, loyalty, consistency, trustworthiness, transparency, blood, sweat, tears, so on and so forth. So Mars is initiating our commitments in that. It's initiating it. And with Mars assisting in the initiation, what that reads is off to a good start with that. Off to a good start with 8th house matters that received the 7th house balance that gave way for the 7th house to rise into the 8th house. So if I say that in easier terms, break it down like a baby, the 7th house is a contract. It's a contract between you and other person or persons, you and other institutions. And even in a legal standpoint, person and persons fictitiously means the same thing in a person of blood and flesh, civiliter mortuus, or the corpse, as well as corporations, organizations, institutions, still means persons. 7th house. So with the 7th house, there was a sense of injustice and balance. Something had to be harmonized. Contracts had to be reconfigured, restated, reproposed. And now that that has happened, you now have access to advance that situation into the 8th house. When you advance what is in the 7th house into the 8th house, now your loyalty is going to be tested. Your endurance is going to be tested. Your sincerity and trustworthiness is going to be tested. Your resilience is going to be tested. Your strength is going to be tested. It is a place where power moves. So the initiatives of the 7th house now rises to your expression of power. At the 8th house, you now are empowered. Mars steps into Scorpio, therefore you are empowered. And it is what you are doing with your empowerment at this point, because Mars is in Scorpio. What are you doing with your power? So what are you doing with your power is consistent with what are you doing with your freedom, okay? And the expression of what are you doing with your freedom, it goes with Vesta and Sagittarius, okay? So Vesta and Sagittarius, it characterizes our expression of freedom with virtue, with morality, with self-restraint, with righteous intention, with temperance, with modesty, even with chastity. You see, so this is where this time around we are responsible with our power and freedom. And we remember in hindsight, as Mars and Black Moon Lilith transited Virgo, that was the most difficult exercises that we had besides the Cancer Mars retrograde. Venus now passes through Virgo in order to bring nurturing to that healed situation, in order to bring enrichment, fulfillment, ointment in the womb, rest and repose, ease and harmony to where we have had severe exercises. So this is a perfect balance that's taken place. The Sun in Libra, this indicates your status in the 7th house matter that you finally ironed out and brought into order. It's your status within it. Mercury is here also. And with Mercury and the Sun being in Libra at the same time, this transit right here, it gives us a sense of diplomacy. And that sense of diplomacy, it keeps us interested in being connected, interconnected with our opportunities, gifts, and new beginnings. That is, keeping sight on the fact that relationships still remain as the valuable thing, the intentional thing, the only thing that makes anything worth anything. And this reflects back to, again, Cancer Jupiter expansion, because there is a sense of brotherhood, sisterhood, tribalism, so on and so forth, nationalism. This, of course, can go to the shadow, or this can go to illumination. Hopefully we treat this in ways where it goes to the illumination and not the shadow, okay? Because the shadow is going to see duality out of this, me versus them, and I have to be defensive because, oh, they're going to eat me, they're going to get me, so on and so forth. It also can lead to the witch hunt type of personalities in combination with Mars and Scorpio, okay? Because Mars and Scorpio, it also inclines us to be very assertive about seeing vengeance or justice, street justice in particular. It is the witch hunt energy, okay? That is Mars Scorpio. It is a witch hunt disposition in the people. Of course, that would be expanding. That is, I want to see blood. I want to see justice. I want to see somebody punished. These different type of things, especially with Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. We want to be careful not to allow our minds to remain in lower frequencies of duality for these reasons. Understand that. Now, so I'm going to go into some other details that, you should consider with these transits that are coming up. It's a combination here, with Virgo, obviously, the solar eclipse that's coming up on the 21st, which is just before the Sun and Mars steps into different expressions of themselves, different modalities of themselves. And this is a new beginning, a new level, because the Mars Chiron opposition that we recently had, where we felt that an imbalance in our life was once again preventing us from escaping or advancing from a native pain that we continue to feel in our identity of lack and inadequacy. And we had to find a solution. And the window for the solution opened up, of course, when Moon was conjunct Uranus. And this date was, Moon was conjunct Uranus on the 12th. That is on the 12th, okay, Friday the 12th into Saturday morning. The Moon was communicating with Uranus, which was giving us a view outside of that opposition of Mars and Chiron. Okay, Mars and Chiron. That was a very difficult one. We could have had a Debbie Downer. Okay, niggas walking around feeling depressed, like I'm all fucked up. Here we go again. This ain't going right. That ain't going right. I got a roadblock. And so that Uranus helped us to step outside of approaches that we probably were exhausted with trying. And so it gave us a way to think outside of the box intuitively, which is, I've been here before, I understand what to do. Let me just trust myself and lean into or listen to my gut and my intuition. And, we could have found a way out soon after that. So if I go back to the 21st, yes, the 21st. Now, this, if you have anything going on at the cusp of Capricorn and Sagittarius, this new moon is presenting a square. And with the square there, the new beginning could very much cause a need to modify whatever you have going on at that cusp of Capricorn and Sagittarius. Okay, you might have to modify something in order to see the opportunity and what's going to be unfolding. Remember that Pluto is out of bounds. Mars is stepping into Scorpio, and shit about to get real. It's about to get realer than real. I'm just going to keep it a buck. Talk with your family, love on your family, have a plan. Don't underestimate any situation. Pay attention. And especially, if you have, youth out there, black sons, yeah, you better talk to them, because right now there's a polarization. There is a lot of anger in the atmosphere. There's, hatred, animosity, fear, so on and so forth. And it could get real ugly. So we want to be responsible enough to have these discussions with family. Know that. On September 19th, Venus enters into Virgo, and she walks in with the moon, which is really starting a new cycle in the Virgo themes that acts as a blessing, a reward, a cool breeze after many wars. This is what I remember in the story of when Prophet Muhammad went to war. They often described among themselves after the war a peace that would descend upon them directly after a battle, in which they called a sakina. And this goes along with some names that are called, for example, sakina wafia. Sakina, it's tranquility. I can attest to this because I've had quite a few wars in my lifetime. And I remember there was an event where my brother and me were, in some street situations where a violent altercation took place, and gunshots rang out as we were approaching a certain party of people, and we jumped in the vehicle. It spun off. We hit a tree. Heard one of my other brothers upstairs yelling and screaming, thinking that, we got hit, but we didn't. They actually ended up hitting the old man with the gunshot, that is. And later on that night, after everything was sorted out, cleaned up, I guess per se, it was a quietness, a silence that showed me that after every what seems like war or altercation like that, and I had so many when I was younger, that the pattern seemed very familiar. That after moments where it seems so violent, so dangerous, so scary, it's like a peace comes over you. Can't explain it. Really reminds me of of a lot. But anyway, I guess I had a second of nostalgia. If you think back to Black Moon Lilith's transit, 9 months through Virgo, where you first got introduced to a crisis at Virgo, where you felt very much dissatisfied about the condition of that area of your life, and you felt like you were helpless or hopeless if you didn't resolve it or get it done. And you put a lot of effort behind bringing a sense of satisfaction to that area of your life where you have Virgo. After that 9 months, you've seen that you recovered your ability to use hard work, discipline, a sense of responsibility, persistence, and you allowed the self-scrutiny that you had inside of yourself to lead you to a greater productivity in your life that would resolve your crisis of discontent with yourself. And you rewarded yourself with that expansion of consciousness and seeing that my efforts, my work ethic can often be a solution to my complaints or discontent if I'm willing to get up and do something about it, get active, and take control of my affairs. Throughout that, scrutiny and criticism became something that we respected a little more. With Mars transiting 2 months through Virgo, if you remember that phase also, that is when we were quite assertive to clear out any junk, any excess, anything that was not a part of manifesting efficiency in our life as it related to the Virgo house themes that we have. We burned the midnight oil. We did whatever we can to clear up the junk. And overall, what we were reaching for at that point was refinement. We seen that we did have access to a higher value in ourselves. We did have access to a higher quality in ourselves, but it really required for us to be aggressive and assertive enough to point out what is realistic and what is not, what is working and what is not, what is good for me and what is simply a distraction, what is noise and what is valuable information, what deserves my time and what does not, and who and what should have access to me and for how long or for how much even. This is where the value of the self was refined during that Mars transit, and where our masterful process of producing value and reproducing value, that is where we made it most efficient for us to reproduce those steps over and over again. And we know that Mars is forwarded to the office of Pallas Athena for strategy later on. And this works well with the first and second new moon, one of those being the eclipse, and that crystallizes a sense of mastery, which is very consistent with the expression of 22. Even on the 22nd, 22, the sun will enter into Libra and Mars will enter into Scorpio. 22 is quite significant this time around. Also representing the South Node, Virgo, 22. Understand? 22. So, with that being said, we've done a lot of work at Virgo placement. That has been the theme for the past year and a half. The house subjects of your Virgo placement. I want you to look at it in your chart. Don't just listen. I want you to look at it. Put your eyeballs on it, you know? Right there, you've gone through a lot. You have really exhausted all of your means and put all of your effort into producing the highest value that you can muster out of yourself as it relates to that Virgo placement. And yes, we've run into overthinking. We've run into the pessimistic view. We've run into a sense of dissatisfaction that somehow we feel we may never even reach. We beat ourselves up a little bit, and we may have overlooked plans over and over and over again, not taking the first step because we want everything to be so perfect. But now the climate changes, the energy changes. Venus comes to bring mercy to this situation, a cool breeze, more of a sunny skies after a storm. And I'm not here to give you prosperity preaching, but I'm here to help us that we will open our minds to notice, take account of, be appreciative of what is surely going to manifest, because we can't overlook it if we have ideals that are not realistic. But if we should maintain realistic ideals, it would certainly be noticeable that as Venus enters into Virgo, she comes in with the sign in conjunction with the moon, which does indicate for us that matriarchal wisdom is behind what's going to manifest through her in this transit. And that lets us know that what we need are care at the core of what answers our needs for security, what answers our needs for nurturing, what answers our needs for even love and emotional support, and also what remains consistent and not in contradiction to our moral convictions, our conscience. This is good, righteous, healthy, benefit, gain, abundance, and attraction that comes into our life to make it more efficient or even enjoyable. Venus magnetizes this area of our life, Virgo, and the sixth house. And what this can look like is emotional support, financial efficiency and accessibility, talent, connections, and ease to increase our finances, and the magnetism to attract to us the appropriate relationships that harmonizes this further than what we have with our own efforts. In other words, the fruits of our labor now comes through. Venus comes to bring the rewards of that labor. And with Venus being in Virgo, she's not where she wants to be, she's where she knows she needs to be. She's on her best behavior when she's in Virgo. Virgo is the finishing school. This is where she comes to maturity, if that maturity should be lacking prior to the time of her stepping into Virgo. In Leo, she wanted all of the attention. She wanted to be recognized. She wanted exclusivity of every eye. She wanted to feel like she's fully alive and expressed. However, in Virgo, she prefers to align with what is more practical, what is reasonable, what makes sense right now. She's also concerned about how can I make my works, my services, my daily process and routine more harmonized, and how can I incorporate others into it to give it a sense of fulfillment? How can I make it meaningful? The hard part was done in manifesting the order that needed to be there. But what about after the construction and creation? It has to also have the aesthetics that includes what our astral body needs out of the situation, which is to experience some levels of beauty and enjoyment. But this is within a mild appetite. It's with temperance. It's seeing that consumerism should often bow to frugality. That practical ideas of enjoyment, pleasure, relationships, it should not contradict the responsibilities that we have to maintain. And it also should not be something that poses a threat or strain to the status that we work so hard to achieve. Make it make sense, in other words. A sober approach to relationships and the things that we enjoy, as well as our dealings in finances. Speaking of, our conscience is now behind how we relate to our finances, as the moon was conjunct Venus when she entered into Virgo. This lets us know that our conscience is with our handling of relationships and finances. As it relates to relationships and finances, we are referring back to our intuitive memory of what we have now come to understand, especially through the South Node, as the moon does rule the South Node. What have we learned about relationships and finances from a standpoint of responsibility, accountability, maturity? and practicality, not getting carried away, not getting carried away. Also not missing opportunity because of the perfection that we expect of everything. Some of the scrutiny, criticism, and judgment that can spoil what is already perfected and beautiful. Learning that purchases and consumption does not have to always justify enjoyment in life. So this is a mature relation to connection with relationships and finances as well as resources, and what it is that we do or how we approach efficiency and comforts. So we could expect that this Venus transit through Virgo is going to show us what we have learned and the blessings that comes with what we were willing to learn. Understand that. That is in context of your Virgo house placement in 6th house. Okay? Comment down below what that means to you. Comment down below what that means to you. So we know that this moon picking up conversation with Venus is headed for an eclipse, a new moon eclipse. Last degree of Virgo. And this is a renewal, a new beginning, an opening. This renewal, this new beginning, this opening, it holds all of the themes that are behind what I described that Venus is going to accent an aftermath of all that we have learned. So a new moon phase begins, which really is a closure and an opening of how we were relating to subject matters of this house. Because it's a new moon, it's not only a new beginning in our conscience, but also a new beginning in our conscious state. Because Mercury just left a Cazimi, in which he is renewed, a clear mind, a receptive mind, a zealous mind, a curious mind, a mind with capacity to be connected and receptive, fully present in its environment, which perfects its expression as a diplomat in Libra. Imagine what you can accomplish with such a frame of mind. Also renewed is this eclipse moon, full intensity. A massive change has to take place, and that change is our patterns are now in favor of our well-being. Our 6th house daily routines and commitments are now aligned to consistently construct the destined 10th house character and image and reputation that is to uphold our highest ambitions, responsibilities, and duties that leads to our spiritual fulfillment that we have always longed for in the true and natural self, the authentic self. This is that new beginning, that the 6th house is now aligned to construct the proper and appropriate character and image at the 10th house. That the 6th house now has the proper approach, formula, process, that in a masterful and effortless way maintains your status and image as who you now have become. Let's make this a clear insight in ourselves. The conscience or the moon passing through Virgo, it changes what it holds sensitivities about. And those sensitivities coming through Virgo, it's sensitivities to what we know we are responsible for. Responsibility is a very big detail with all the activity happening here at the South Node. And that responsibility helps us to address at the North Node any fears or concerns or doubts about whether or not we will be successful, rather we can handle what we have just stepped into of new contracts into the new self. This doubt, this fear, this hesitation, this wonder, it submits to the confidence that we give ourselves and the discipline, work ethic that we know we're capable of. I can handle it. And Venus is already put on notice that you will not subject me to temptation. You will keep me consistent with what I suffered to learn, as I owe obedience to the things that I suffered. That's what this is. And what that does is, as Saturn, in the context of 22, which speaks to the South Node Virgo, in context of 22, mastery, the moon and Uranus is part of the combination of 22 as well as Neptune. That is what makes the master 22. It is a combination that makes all masters. You have to include Uranus, Saturn, and the moon. It's a snapshot of the sequence of energies that's going to maintain us from here on out in this eclipse phase of new beginning and inheriting responsibilities, connections, resources that now leads directly to the fulfillment of our destiny that we have found our way to align with finally. And so as Saturn is going retrograde, Saturn checks in with this conversation of the moon and Venus, as the intuitive mind has to connect with the capacity of discipline, obedience, and accountability, grit, practicality. It also has to be consistent with Uranus, genius, revelation. Through Gemini, this is an unorthodox outlook on what's possible. It's an innovative intention with the data at hand. So when you put this all together, it is a 22 vibration, especially through Pisces, North Node, coming off of Neptune, the vision that all of this is working towards, of Aries, the self, the new beginning of self, the initiative of self, the casting of the new image or the original image of the self. So Saturn is working consistently with all of this. And in a nutshell, what I'm telling you is that this is like graduation school. You are graduating. You're graduating from the hard processes through Virgo that puts us in a competent position with authority, expertise, knowledge, skill, experience, mastery, a recovery of the moral commitment, a clear conscience. We are now officially in position. If we look at the 22nd, again, there's that 22. The 22nd, when the sun steps into the 0 position, 0 to 1 of Libra, and Mars is in 0 to 1 of Scorpio, we're at transformational points. These are transformational points. You're transferring from one conscious to another. As it relates to the sun, your preoccupation, it changes now. We no longer, at this point after the 22nd, will be preoccupied with refinement of the self. The self is now refined. And Venus is the one that attracts those realities, that makes us aware of our refinement and the value that we have procured in ourselves. So Venus is the one who comes to bless with the coat of paint over the new construction. So you built the building, and Venus is the one who comes to bring the appliances, the paint, the pictures, the carpet, the furniture to fill in that construction. So with that mission being accomplished, with that consciousness being downloaded and internalized, embodied, the sun now goes to Libra, which is what? Now you take the value or refinement of the self, and you're seeking to see that value of yourself reflected in the relationship status that you have with others. And Mercury is here to assist in those negotiations. It is a new, zealous, young mind. A mind that is not full of vengeance, bitterness, distractions, noise. It's a new mind, a curious mind. A mind that knows how to say yes, yes, yes. It wants to make the contract work. It is a diplomat. This diplomatic mindset, along with a self-consciousness that now sees itself as one half of a relationship, one actor, one participant, one member in a relationship, in a contract. That self-awareness, it has us to want to utilize our communications, Mercury, to negotiate a reflection of ourselves in what we have going on in our relationships. It also has us to want to see harmony in all of our dealings and doings. This has us to prioritize the concern of seeing beauty in our life. It's not enough just to live. We really do need beauty in our life. I didn't say vanity. I didn't say lust. I said beauty. We really do need beauty in our life. The things of life that makes you feel that life should be celebrated. The things in your life that makes you feel that life is something to celebrate. And that is going to be the preoccupation. I want my life to be something that I want to celebrate. And Libra is where that reality is clarified to you, as well as the 7th house, which obviously is through your connection with others. Through Mercury, we are leading with our communications and our awareness to call others to these ideas or ideals. Mars has a different story going on. And what this is about is that with Venus coming into Virgo, and with the new moon eclipse at Virgo, something has come into your life as a solution for that Mars Chiron opposition that we just had last week. And what came into your life is something that requires the level of responsibility and mastery that you've developed through the Virgo Black Moon Lilith and Virgo Mars transit that now gets blessed and sealed as complete with Venus and the new moon. What you have now in your life, it must be maintained by that energy. Fear can present itself in saying to you that you have reason to doubt that you can handle it because in the past you fumbled it. This was when Saturn first went direct, going through the 3rd decan of Pisces. During that time period, you lost something. And now in hindsight, you're looking at it like, am I gonna mess up again? Can I really handle it? I actually have access again to what I know I really need to live a fulfilling life, that missing piece. It's here. I've manifested it. I've drawn it into my life. It's here now. So with that being the case, you don't want to mess it up. You have this fear through Pisces, which is a hindsight coming through the retrograde Saturn. But what gives you the confidence so that that doesn't happen? Not only the mastery that you have sealed in this new moon Virgo eclipse, where fate also works in your favor to make sure that that is the case. You have the power of your communication to act as a diplomat in your own life over all of your circumstances, to negotiate the best terms and circumstances to make sure that your contracts are realistic and within your capacity to fulfill at all times. However, Mars through Scorpio, this gives you an ambitious work ethic, dedication, strategic mindset, and the ability to kill the ego for long enough to meet all of your goals. It subjects you to a transformational depth in your strength and your willpower to assert yourself in such a way where you can recover anything that was dead and bring it back to life. This is the ambition of, for example, you lost $1 million, and because of this transit, you have the ability to get it all back. It's to lose something big and get it back. And that's a capacity of that ambition, that drive and determination that comes with Mars transiting Scorpio. It is personal to you. It is directly linked to your instinct, your killer instinct, your survival instinct. It's do or die. It's do or die. And there's no way you can see yourself giving up on it. And with this placement, it is painful, but to you, it will seem painless. The feats that you will have to go through to pull off these first steps is damn near superhuman. But you are more than able, you're more than capable, because Mars in Scorpio can handle anything. And I mean anything. There's no trauma, no drama, no difficulty that you are not going to be able to match with resilience, fearlessness, boldness, and the ability to look many deaths in the eye. This is where the instinct serves the determination and the willpower. So in combination with Venus coming through Virgo, this is a time where your finances can have an exponential rise as well because of this configuration. And all of this is forwarded to this vision that you had as Neptune and Saturn was conjunct at Aries. Neptune saying at Aries, am I my own ideal? And Saturn saying, is my own ideal realistic and attainable? And in retrograde, he says, okay, let's see about that. Let's get it done. So this Mars, it's a promise. You cannot fail with this Mars in Scorpio. This is resilience on steroids. What this also does is it gives us an assertive attitude about eighth house themes. The eighth house themes is where powers generate. That's where we initiate our contact, our connection, our exercise, our use of our power. You have to have resilience for that. You have to be able to trust yourself for that and trust others. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. And it's that factor right there that's really going to make the difference. How honest are we willing to be with ourselves? How honest can we be with ourselves? What is the capacity or threshold of the amount of honesty that we can look at ourselves through? With that question in mind, our goals, our challenges are very realistic roadmaps to success and victory, because we're willing to put the ambition and strategy behind it that is from a realistic place. Mars entering into Scorpio, things are going to get very real. This is where we prefer the truth. We prefer honesty. We prefer transparency, no matter how painful it is, no matter what it costs. We want to know that it's real. So this is a side of ourselves where we spend 2 months stepping out of a reality a false reality of lies, deception, sweet lies, tell me anything to comfort me, making ourselves feel good by telling ourselves what we know is not true, or entertaining what we know is not real, hiding behind illusions, falsehoods. This is where we have to address where we have delusions and we are resisting the painful moment of disillusionment, where the truth is going to disagree with what we want it to be true, and what is fair is going to disagree with how we calibrated the scales. But you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. This is where we align with truth. We assert ourselves in such a way that we are aligned with truth, consistent with truth, on the right side of truth, and not fighting or resisting truth. We want to know the truth, and we want to be consistent with what is true. This really makes for self-determination. Self-determination, independence. It also opens up acceleration for entrepreneurship. So in our world today, where jobs are not such a secure thing, this is a great time to act on any entrepreneurial missions, going your own way, because you will surely have the fortification, the resilience to deal with whatever challenges are involved in that. Overcoming. This can also include some obsession. Obsessiveness is around the corner. Domination of others and their identity. Cruelty. Control. Intolerance. Overbearance, especially, because when we speak about Mars in Scorpio, this is an attitude of overbearance. It's like punishing the one who told the truth. Punishing the one who was honest. If it doesn't equate to a picture-perfect idea of what you think loyalty should be. To go around accusing everyone of not being trustworthy. We got to be careful with this energy. It can mean vengeance, seeking revenge, wanting to see blood. You want some get back. Now let me warn, 8th house matters. It requires commitment. It requires consistency, transparency, trust. And this is what we're going to want to assert ourselves into. And this is what other people from the other side with the same energy are going to want to assert themselves with in our life as well. But I do remind you, with Mercury in Libra, this is a good time to be very wise to negotiate your contracts. Know what you're getting yourself into. Because entitlement always follows behind Scorpio energy. Entitlement. A sense of entitlement. Expectations. Entitlement and expectations can soar very, very high. And that's not healthy. So we want to check that before we even get there. Entitlement and expectations. Let's be very careful about entitlement and expectations. Now, know that Mars is Scorpio is the second of three courts. First court Libra, second court Scorpio, third court Sagittarius. The court of Scorpio is eye for eye, tooth for tooth. It is instinctual. This is the court where Mars leaving Libra, there's some justice that may not have manifest from the law of the land, by the people, or by textbook. So this is where it accelerates. This is where it escalates into a motion to seek justice or claim justice by one's own hands, by one's own means. In fact, it is street justice. This goes along with witch hunts, public protests that demands punishment, public protest that demands that someone be stoned, hung, or brought out back in you know what. So this is going to increase the witch hunt attitude, which is whenever someone does something in society that may be illegal or perceived as injustices, the people turn into a witch hunt frenzy. They want to see blood. They want to see justice. They want to see a hanging. They want to see somebody punished. It's like the story of when Jesus and the prostitute, the men who themselves slept with the same prostitute, they all are out there circling her, wanting to throw stones at her. But as Jesus said, ye who is without sin, cast the first stone. None of them was without sin. Half of them niggas out there slept with the prostitute, but yet they're out there with a rock in their hand, ready to stone the lady. And this is where we have come at in society, where we've come full circle to that lesson all over again. Kill him, hang him, and this should happen and that should happen, and throw him away in jail forever. But we're forgetting humanity behind what we're seeing. We're forgetting to process what we're seeing and hearing fully, and to take all things into consideration. We also are forgetting the simple question of what if it was you? And that's on both sides, of the victims and the ones who may turn out to be predators. We have a public health crisis as it relates to mental health. The mentally ill have completely been abandoned in America. Homeless have been abandoned in America. Average Americans are struggling to feed themselves, to keep gas in their car, to find jobs, to get back their sense of dignity in life, to make ends meet. The desperation is exponential. And with all of that in combination, to where we are looking every day at our trusted elected officials and people who we charge with trust in these high positions, the lack of integrity, the lack of humanity, dignity, respect, people are in despair and hopeless. They're seeing that laws, the Constitution, is totally overlooked, and these people can do whatever they want to do, and there's nothing you can say about it. It's times where the people are struggling to hold to the last fiber of their sanity. And when you mix all that together, especially with this mental illness crisis going on, the homelessness, desperation, we're going to get behaviors that should never be normalized, or that is not normal. And taking all of that into consideration as we assess every event, of what's behind what's going on lately. We also have to take into consideration that America is a movie theater. The propaganda is real. You can't believe what you're seeing and you can't believe what you're hearing on face value. You have to remember there are paid actors throughout. There are agendas, psyops, propaganda, and they don't mind spending money and hiring actors, trauma actors, whatever it takes to get you to believe in a certain direction or think in a certain manner, behave in a certain way. We can't keep being the puppets for this. We've got to get in touch with our clairvoyance and see it for what it really is. And that is what Scorpio accomplishes through the power of Pluto. Seeing the truth for what it is. Seeing through the veil. Seeing through the matrix. Seeing what the reality really is, not the fictitious play that's being done in front of us. And Mars brings an assertive effort to really know what's behind that veil. This is where we all become disillusioned in finality, in this timeline, this phase of this North and South Node context. This is where more secrets get revealed, more truth gets shown. This is where more of the veil gets pulled back. This is where we as a collective get to see deeper into the truth behind the matrix. This is where the reality gets thinner. It's going to dispel a lot of the mucus in the eyes with the people when Mars gets into Scorpio. It's going to be the shock of reality, a shock of truth, a stunning shock of truth. Mind you, Pluto is out of bounds, so it could get very, very dangerous in society. That is a warning. It can get dangerous in society. Pluto is out of bounds. Mars is coming into Scorpio. That is a very dangerous combination. Be warned. Be warned. Okay, so this last little detail is little, well, it's not off subject actually. All of this, rolls in together. But what I want to say is that with the Charlie Kirk, matter, the topics that he has and, talking points, as well as Nick Fuentes, it's important that we talk about it with our family, with our loved ones, and especially the youth. You don't want to avoid it. You don't want to go around it. You don't want to pretend like it's not there. And we definitely don't want to practice escapism and covering our eyes and ears and saying, namaste, positive vibes only. I don't want the negativity. That's not what's supposed to happen. You don't have to personalize things and you don't have to internalize things, but we do have a responsibility to remain conscious, aware of what events are taking place in our world, and we need to be in position to decode it, explain it, understand it, examine it, test it, and especially have those discussions with our loved ones, those around us, to keep that awareness current. We don't want to shy away from these topics. There's productive ways to have all of these conversations. Now, I would like to say that no one should ever celebrate someone's death. No one should ever celebrate or condone violence, and it should never be looked at as something of a relief, a joy, or something to make fun of, at a tragedy like what happened with Charlie Kirk. Okay. I don't care what his opinions were, they still were his views, his opinions, no matter how controversial it was. But what I do want to say is that are his views, or Nick Fuentes even, it's not that their views are unique, special, enlightened, or super sophisticated, or even of a high intellectual level. I would really argue that. But they are getting the attention of many youth, and they're getting the attention of many demographics, especially, white males of United States. And there's a reason for that. And much of that reason is that they stand as voices, voices that have found a way to cope. Okay, the word is cope. That is Pisces. That is a Pisces attribute. They found a way to cope. Okay, we are in North Node Pisces transit. Saturn is retrograde in Pisces. Okay, let's pay attention to where we are. The Lord of, one of the lords of Pisces is Neptune, which is in Aries, identity. Okay, so they found a way through his voice to cope, and through his arrangement of statistics, through his proposal of facts and data, they found a way to cope with white guilt. It is simply coping with white guilt. It doesn't mean that the points that he made shuts anything down, or it's 100% right or 100% wrong. It's a coping means. It's a coping mechanism, because this guilt, this shame of the resume, the history, the legacy of white males, not only in America, in every nation on earth, it bears weight on their conscience. I'm not here to say good, bad, right, wrong. I'm making a journalistic Gemini observation as a Gemini. Okay, let's understand that. Okay, and so this is a lesson in duality. Duality is a lesson of both Pisces and Gemini. We know that in Gemini we have Uranus, and Pisces we have karmic closure taking place. Okay, so as all of this is happening, note also that Pisces is an energy or realm of martyrs. Okay, it is a place of martyrdom. And martyrdom has its close relationship with those who stand up in our society to represent our means of coping with what we feel we have failed to resist or overcome. Okay, that martyrdom for a person who represents our righteous anger. Okay, our righteous anger, our shame, and our guilt. And so what we're dealing with is the whole entire globe is now becoming vocal, open, and fully expressive about the fact that all of them, as indigenous people of the earth, are pointing at white people, white males specifically, and calling them out, holding them to it, kicking them out of the country, expelling them from their nations, banning them from their societies. And this is all over the globe. And it's also taking place in America, where people are no longer submitting to or going along with the narratives that they set comfortably behind for many centuries. The whole world is now rejecting, rebelling, overcoming, awakening out of the stupor of sleep that white narratives have placed on every single nation on the face of this earth. And every nation has the same complaint, that they came, they stole, they pillaged, they raped, they abused, they killed by the thousands.
They lied. They put in corporations and institutions that left the natives or indigenous outside of opportunity or in limited opportunity, and then turned it around as if it's their fault that they're in the circumstances that they're in. They destroyed the entire of Africa and then blame it on the lack of intelligence of the people, or lack of brilliance, lack of creativity, so on and so forth. Even though all of these people had civilizations, theology, gnosis, science, religion, spirituality, sophisticated systems, and everything else, societies, before they were ever known on the earth. And they can't deal with the guilt. They can't deal with people's honesty finally coming to the forefront collectively on the entire earth about who they have been, what their legacy has been, what their history is, what their resume is, what their forefathers were to every people on the earth. It has a consistency that everybody has known, and patterns about the traits, the behaviors, the policies, the culture, the approach of said white people. And so now that people are no longer submitting to those narratives that they have placed in the earth, Uranus is in Gemini, the minds are now open and receptive, seeing beyond narratives. There's systems that did incorporate white supremacy, even since the black codes. Don't just listen to me, look this stuff up. The Secret Treaty of Verona, Doctrine of Discovery, Manifest Destiny, and all of this expanding out from Unum Sanctum and the Spanish Inquisition. The stories of old of all people of the earth were told inaccurate, blatant lies about who's who and what happened and how this land came to be and how this nation. Nobody's believing them anymore. Nobody is submitting to their illusion of power. Nobody is complying with their illusion of power. And white males are having a hard time dealing with that. It's scary to them. They're falling apart. And this is at a soul level. It's not something that they're cognitively aware of. It's in the soul. And when something is in the soul is reacting to what the cognitive mind has not yet caught up to register. It is pure fear what these white nationalists are spewing and speaking. And the truth is that much of what Nick Fuentes has to say and much of what Charlie Kirk has to say, it's true. It's founded in reality. They have very true and sincere talking points. Two things can be true at the same time. The fact that their talking points are true, it should be examined. We should take accountability for that, as far as what they have to say about the black community, what they have to say about us, in our legacy in America, what they have to say about how we relate to crime and different things of that nature. There is a lot of truth in it. And we should own every drop of that truth and not run away from it, because guess what? We don't fail in owning the truth. We're not weak for owning the truth. We're not less than for owning the truth. We can only empower ourselves by accepting every single thing that is true. With that being said, they also should do the same, and we see that they're having a hard time doing that. What they're having a hard time accepting is that their forefathers' history, reputation, and resume, it cannot be erased from history. It cannot be washed away. It cannot be denied. They cannot separate themselves from it and walk away and say, oh, that didn't happen, because it did. Every complaint you have about black people, about Hispanic people, it started with what you did to them. And that's a hard, cold fact. This whole entire country is founded on human trafficking. No white person is native to this land. No white person is native to any land. They are the only people on earth who have been nomadic and homeless. And they found a place in the European regions, but they were not the first ones there. And this isn't discrediting anybody. It's not disrespect. It's not hate. It's just a fucking truth. And they went all over the earth using violence, force, oppression, tyranny, genocide, everywhere they went. And once they steal a property, and once they kill the strong and force the weak into their system on that property, now they want to change hats and suits and pretend, oh, I'm so innocent, I'm so virtuous. Look at you guys, you do all this crime, you do most of the crime. Okay, but is this not a stolen land? Let's start right there. How did we get in the situation we're in? Who did that to us? What happened to the Native Americans who were of Asian descent? Well, I myself am a Native American of African descent, called a Moor. I am a Moor. And what happened to our identities, our names, our languages, our heritage? Why did you erase it from us? Why did you take it from us? Why did you lie about who we are and what we had? So it's what I'm naming is that nobody's innocent. Nobody has clean hands in this. White people are not by default righteous, better than anybody, on a moral high horse, in position to point fingers and say, you're doing this and you're doing that and you're the one ruining the country. You're the one making this an unsafe place. You're the one doing this and that. Because guess what? Every nation, every indigenous nation on the face of this earth can point to you and say, no, you don't got room to talk. It's hypocrisy at its finest. It is hypocrisy at its finest. Because if we were to ask the sincere question, who does the most crime in this country? We would have to get every nation of this country, every indigenous nationality and tribe of this country, and call them together and ask that question for us to answer it together. And among many answers, everybody will point to the white man and say, he did more to us than we did to them. And this is in every continent, every nation from sea to shining sea. It is the case. Now, white people don't have to walk around and hold this on their head as guilt and shame. They don't have to. Not unless you're still doing it. Not unless it is still who you choose to be. Not unless it is what you participate in. Not unless it is a legacy that you have decided to continue. Why should you have shame and guilt? Why should you feel burdened? What is better for them to do is release that by living a life that ascends those lower frequency paths of their forefathers, while still honoring the good that they did too. It's the same thing with feminism. When you reject what is true about you, when you reject your reality, you only become the thing that you're accused of being in the first place, en route back to yourself. So as these feminists are out here, oh, men are misogynistic, oh, it's the patriarchy, everything is men's fault, I'm better, we're better than men, or we're equal to men, I can do anything that a man does. The end result is that you become the very misogynist that you speak against. You become just like the same misogynist that you're talking about. And if anybody in America knows that our American women not all of them with exception, our American women, by standard, have become old men. They have become men. They've become masculine. They've become misogynistic. Their character is shitty, bad attitude, disrespectful. Can't nobody tell them nothing. They know every damn thing. They're jealous of the destiny of man. They envy the destiny of man. And in all of the rejection of their willful decision to step into this image and identity, this reputation of being whores, this reputation of being prostitutes, this reputation of being unqualified for marriage, this reputation of being untrustworthy. American women have totally ruined their image and reputation. And it's nobody to blame except themselves. So instead of admitting what the collective of feminists have decided to do with the collective image of themselves, they decide to deflect, and it only makes them more of what they're being accused of being. This is what's happening. And nothing's being done to white people unique or different in America. It's just that now they're being treated the same as everybody else. Now they're getting to taste the reality of everybody else that everybody else already been dealing with. They're not getting the special treatment anymore. They're not getting the exclusivity or exclusive respect that they used to get. Everybody is sober now and no longer impressed about them. Join the club, because we all are used to it. And again, this is not all of them, but it's a common attitude that's going around that finds its limitations in duality, and in duality remains a civil war. If we can bring it above that duality, we find commonality, and that all of us are subject to those same universal laws and struggles. And there is wisdom and love that is born, and unification that is born. So people are trying to cope. And the coping, it leads to vices. It leads to perversions. It leads to ill repute. It leads to escapism rather than dealing with. Thus the justification of the rise of Christian nationalism.
Now, as for the Christian nationalism that's being fully advanced, spread, the indoctrination is pushing quite aggressively. There's this idea that this is a Christian nation. America is about Christianity, and the forefathers were Christian. None of that is true. None of it is true. And I'm here to tell you that treaties are superior to the Constitution. Let me say that again. Treaties are superior to the Constitution. Treaties take precedence over the Constitution. And even within the Constitution, no such words or declarations have ever been stated that this is a Christian nation. The Treaty of Tripoli blatantly states that this is not a Christian corporation or country or nation. It is not. It is a blatant lie from the pit of hells. They want it to be that case. And they put emotion behind their frustrated efforts to make you believe and accept that. And it's not the truth. And there's nothing they can do about it. The founding fathers were not Christians. They were what's called deist. And the founding fathers were also devout students of Islam. Not only did they own the Holy Quran, but they consistently and devotedly studied the Holy Quran as well as Prophet Muhammad, Arhiq al-Maktoum. And there's no one that can refute it, and there's nothing they can do about it.
The first treaty, the Treaty of Peace, was between the Maritime Corporation that later would register with France, and then Borinqua, and then Guam as a corporation, and what through contractual agreement would have Republican representation up until Lincoln's bankruptcy of the United States of France. It was never to be considered a Christian nation, but it was a Muslim territory before that conquistadors came here and gained permission for access and settlement. That was during the downfall of the Moorish Empire, 1492, as an outcome of the Spanish Inquisition. And through these treaties, they also were able to inherit certain territories, as well as inherit certain booties of war. And much of it, of course, because of doctrine of discovery and permission of the crown, as the monarchy was spreading through the doctrine of discovery from the crown in Europe. They were able to inherit the estate of an already established society here in the Americas along the Mississippi River and along the East Coast. In doing so, this would lead to their advancement of attacks and strategies that would subject those indigenous peoples of this land to slavery and servitude. And part of that oppression was in labeling and mislabeling, such as the conversion of the identities of the tribes here, which many were under the jurisdiction of the Moorish Empire, or Moors. Even Native American tribes. There will later on be the identities assigned to them of Negro, colored, black, African American, so on and so forth. And this makes them of a status called non-descendable, a non-descendable status. And in placing them in non-descendable status while also obscuring their entire memory of who they are, selling their babies, selling their wives, selling husbands like cattle. So much gets lost in the confusion of this reconstruction. But truth can never, ever be perished. It can never be done away with. And the full circle, it's coming back en route. Where you thought the lie would last. You thought the privilege would last. Why would anybody think that privilege would last that long? That lies would last that long? Eventually, the truth has to come back out. Eventually, what's wrong has to be made right. You can't win forever. You can't dominate forever. You can't rule forever. Nobody ever has. And although it's painful, it's not unjust. So it has the illusion of, oh, somebody's doing you wrong. No. The whole world is waking up, and they're coming out of the grips of the same people who done it to everybody. There is an aggressive attempt for white males to make themselves the symbol of what it means to be American, to make their self the brand of America, to make their self the default archetype of who should stand before the red, white, and blue flag. But people are disillusioned, and they no longer believe that. They no longer see that. They no longer accept that. And they're getting angry, they're getting frustrated, they're getting upset that they can't hold on to that illusion, that people won't buy into their deceptions anymore. It's frustrating them. It's making them mad. You don't get to be the symbol of America. You don't get to be the mascot of the red, white, and blue. You didn't build it by yourself. You stole it. And you enslaved people to build it. You did unspeakable crimes to humanity. You sent indigenous tribe from the north, the south, the east, and the west into rocky places. Wiped out some entire nations. In Africa, King Leopold took out millions in the Congo. And for centuries, nobody can punish you for it, but you get to punish everybody for every little thing that they do that offends you. Everybody has to endure, put up with, stomach, be patient with, show some humility to you stepping on other people, but when it comes your turn, oh, it's a problem. They don't want to accept that other people are realizing that they are just as American as they are, if not more, because there are brown people and black people who are far more American than white people because they preceded white people in being here. That includes the Hispanics that white people have placed the Monroe Doctrine over, inspired by the secret treaty of Verona, in order to police them. And as you see, Donald Trump acted on that Monroe Doctrine when he sent Marines to Venezuela. It's like a rejection, a resentment, a hatred of the fact that people of color are more American than white people. And they don't know how to deal with that because they were here first. We were here first. I was here first. My nappy head, my big lips, my broad nose, yes, 100% American. Absolutely American. And they are not going to get their entitlement, their spoiled tantrums in the sandbox, crying and throwing tantrums because they can't have it their way. America does not mean what they wanted it to continue meaning. And we want to ask, who is American? You have to ask every tribe that has been here before they got here. And then you have to ask every people who contributed to building this place. The Asians who built the railroads, the Irish who came here early, the Italians who were among the first navigators on behalf of Europe, the Moors such as myself. The black people who were mislabeled as black, although copper-tone Native Americans. The Asian migrants called Native Americans are not the only ones who represent Native American tribes. There were African migrants too who represented those Native American tribes here thousands of years before any Europeans ever stepped foot. There have been lies that have hurt people for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But there's this audacity to try to home in on who's doing the most crime in America. So I'm going to go and steal a house, which is a crime, kill everybody who has the strength to defend that house, and then later on, when I get comfortable and decorate the house the way I want it, put my name placard up on it, and pull my car up in the driveway. When the inhabitants later on of the house start doing petty crime, I'm going to start throwing tantrums and might put a microscope on their petty crimes, even though my major crime was the fact that I stole the house in the first place that they even in. And I stole it from the people in the house who's doing the petty crime. And what happens when you steal everything from the people whose house you stole it from and you bring them to a point of scarcity? Do you not expect them to steal? You see, this is the logic that Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes doesn't have. They have talking points that make for great controversial discussions that can lead to great revelations. But both of them have something in common, is that they lack wisdom. They don't have wisdom. But it's still productive that they should be out there speaking. It's productive. And we have to meet our youth who surround them and make sure that our youth are considering wisdom with all of the talking points that they're absorbing, and not becoming avoidant about what's happening. And the avoidance is, you are a descendant of these white people who did this to all people of the earth, but it's not for you to feel guilt or shame about it. It's for you to own the facts that you can't change and change the possibilities and opportunities that you can change within your lifetime. That's all you have to do. You don't have to run and hide. You don't have to get afraid and project pride and arrogance, thinking that you're hiding the fact that you are scared. This arrogance, this stubbornness, this misogyny, this patriarchal reactions, it's isolating us from the rest of the world. Look at Trump. We're bagging in a corner, getting isolated. The arrogance of aggression instead of diplomacy. No one's going to stop the enlightenment taking place. So-called African Americans are realizing that most of them did not come from Africa. That the story is fucking bullshit for the most part. Most are realizing that. Most are realizing that we are indigenous to this land. Most are realizing that, finally. And what comes after that is the claim of our status as Moors, before the Black Codes erased it, before that the Reformation did away with all of the accessible information that could verify such things to the common person. But you can't hide the truth. You can't stop the truth. You cannot block the truth. You cannot destroy the truth. The truth will always resurface. Always. No matter what. That truth will come back. And Israel is over there reliving that legacy from scratch. Doctrine of discovery, unum sanctum, genocide, false narratives, lies. And Donald Trump and our country is helping them to do what they were successful in doing to all of the indigenous people here. And that's what makes it hard for them to outlive that guilt, because some of them are still doing it, and some of them are still enabling and egging it on, praising it, encouraging it, and supporting it. So yes, you're going to get touched by that guilt because you're still a part of it.